In this video, I'm going to walk you through the complete prospecting guide that I use to fill the pipelines of myself and my clients. In just this last month, this exact process has booked over 175 meetings, including executives at multi-billion dollar companies. This is all done 100% through cold email, and I've time-stamped every section of the process in this video. Now, if at any point during this video you would like my personal help setting up this exact workflow for your business, then go ahead and book a call below. My link is in the description, and we'll discuss how we can scope this out for you. Cold email is the most disrespected marketing channel on the face of the planet today, and it is by far the most effective. The internet is full of spam today. It has never been harder to market and stand out to your ideal customers, especially if you're marketing B2B. Everybody is saying the same thing, using the same medium, and nobody is getting through, except for the people that know how to leverage cold email properly. The reason I keep going back to cold email is because everybody at any company, no matter how big, whether you're the janitor or you're the CEO, will have an email. And if you want to get in front of your ideal client, the ideal decision maker, there is no channel that gives you this level of access with as much certainty as cold email when it's done right. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can close large B2B enterprises using cold email. The concepts that I'll be discussing in this video are going to sound very simple, but you'll find implementation can be a little bit more complicated. As is everything in life, the idea is simple, the execution is hard. If at any point you'd like my help setting this up for your business, then go ahead and book a call with me below. My link is in the description, and we'll be able to scope this out for your business. In order to explain exactly why cold email is so effective, especially at scale, you have to first understand what these enterprises are doing today to get customers. They're going to conferences, they're being referred personally, or they're doing a little bit of ad or performance marketing that's generating some site visitors that come to their website, and it's really a hodgepodge of seniority levels. You never know who you're going to get. You have to understand that what they are looking for is a consistent pipeline that can get them in front of their ideal customers, and they just do not have this infrastructure. Everybody knows cold email as this nebulous concept where you send a mass email that says the same thing and it goes out to millions of people, and it's very clearly spam. That is not the world of cold email today. Tools have changed. The game has changed. You can do things like personalize with relevancy and high intent signals, and you can also market differently than these other players in the game. The beauty is that most of cold email is a science, but there's 20% that makes it an art, and that 20% is where everybody fails. Most large companies get the bulk of their business from referrals. The issue with that is that referrals come and go. It's not a predictable pipeline that you can count on. While you might have had some track record of success, that is not a business plan to grow by referrals. You don't go to your board and say, hey, we're projecting this much growth. We're going to get referred around. I'm sure it'll happen. It doesn't make sense. It's a nice to have, but if you're overly reliant on it, then you are just a couple customers dropping off from being in a tight spot financially or from a growth perspective. That's why referrals cannot be the growth lever for you. Companies at the highest echelons find that they get the best results when they are having in-person discussions and relationships. And that's okay. That's never going to change. You're always going to have the best effort or the best foot forward when you get to meet people in person at events. The problem with that is that you can't do that at scale. You can't keep going to conferences all year long. And even if you do, you only have so much time. You only have so much energy. You can only be in so many sit downs at once. So conferences, while it feels like that is the way to grow the business, again, it's not something that's within your control. You can go and sign up for conferences, and that's great, but it's not a growth lever that you can pour certain inputs in and get an expected output out. It's not a predictable pipeline. And at the enterprise level, you might ask yourself, well, what about performance marketing? What about SEO? For most enterprises, the reason that they've been able to get into the 8 or 9 figures is because their solution is either so mass market, or, so then you might be asking yourself, well, Arcia, the obvious answer is paid ads. Why wouldn't you do performance marketing to bring in business? Here's the thing about performance marketing. It is highly effective if your solution is D2C. If you have a product that regular consumers, individuals will use, then performance marketing is a great call because you are able to market to anybody, and anybody generally can be your customer. Think about it this way. If you're DoorDash, then anybody can sign up with a DoorDash account. They're able to spend with their individual wallets, and they're able to make a purchase and become a customer. If you are Salesforce, then you aren't necessarily going to have people that are signing up individually, spending their own money on their credit card to use the tool. It's a business tool. It's not marketed to individuals that way. So performance marketing for things like Salesforce, outside of common SEO, it's not highly effective. And on top of that, the ads landscape is constantly changing. You're constantly getting everything from new rules, new legislation, new performance targeting. You need to have media buyers, new creatives constantly being made, script writing. It needs to go from images to videos. And on top of that, you just need to be running the business while running this whole full-time media arm. And if you don't know what you're doing, guess what? You have to spend money just to learn what you're doing wrong. Every single time you launch an ad, there are dollars coming out of your pocket. So what's the solution? Why does cold email work better than all of these? Because of three things. Number one, scalability. The reason paid ads are so effective is because you can get in front of your ideal customer at scale. I can simply ramp my budget up and suddenly I'm in front of more profiles, more eyeballs. The thing is, again, everybody at a company from the CEO to the janitor has an email. That doesn't mean that you have to email every single one of them, but you can rest assured that your ideal client profile, your ICP, has an email. And it's just about finding it and being able to email them. There are databases popping up every single day, more and more specialized. There's everything from Crunchbase to Apollo. There's store leads for e-commerce brands. There's GetLotka for SaaS companies. There's PitchBook for investors. You are getting more and more access to businesses that literally specialize in surfacing this information for you. Scale is no longer a limitation with email. Secondly, personalization. How personalized can you make each message? Now, I can go on a long rant about all the different personalizations you can do. You can scrape LinkedIn, you can go and do research. Just know that you can find and surface these signals, whether it's high intent from the business or whether you are identifying specific roles and identifying specific responsibilities to that role and crafting messages specifically for that client profile. Second reason is that emails are far cheaper than any other medium you are currently employing. Paid ads to get to your entire TAM, your total addressable market, is a lot of money. And it really doesn't matter. The bigger it is or the more segmented it is, you're gonna have to spend more money to get in front of those right people, because it's either going to spend the money hyper targeting or to spend the money getting in front of enough people. Emails are far cheaper to send than sending anybody to a conference. Hundreds of dollars, up to tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent at conferences by large enterprises just to have this same one-to-one touch point that an email gets you for a fraction of the price. And I just want to be clear, I'm not saying don't go to conferences, but I'm just saying if you are willing to spend a couple $1,000s getting one person to a conference for one weekend to go and talk to 5 or 6 people or 20 people or 30 people, when you could literally take the same money and get to your entire total addressable market using email, there's an argument to be made that you should be doing both. And then thirdly, it's personalization. It's relevancy. The big issue with email that everybody always says is that, well, we tried email and it didn't work. We sent a big mass message and it didn't get in front of anybody, or it didn't convert, or we got all to the wrong people. We always hear that all the time. Here's the deal. There are more databases being created daily than ever before. There are databases for the general populace where you can find people on sites like Apollo. There's also databases like Store Leads that are specifically for e-commerce brands, or PitchBook that are specifically for private equity or investors or venture capital, or GetLotka that are specifically for SaaS companies. There are segments of your market. There are databases that segment specifically for the niche of your market. And on top of that, the big issue we always hear is that we're talking to the wrong people. We're getting too far down the food chain. Well, guess what? Those filters exist too. You can simply filter and create a segment that is only senior titles to make sure that you're talking to the right decision makers, and also the right category of decision makers. You don't want to talk to counsel if you've got a sales solution. But most of the time, the big feedback we hear is, yeah, but the messaging, it's not personal, it doesn't work, it's too long, it's too spammy, etc., etc. There are more tools than ever to help you personalize the messaging and to help get into the mailboxes of these people with a message that is relevant to them, that speaks to a specific problem they're having, or even references things that are happening to them in the news, whether from a company perspective or a personal perspective. Compared to any other channel that exists for closing enterprises, cold email is by far the best one. You will get in front of every one of the decision makers that you want to speak to. You'll be able to do it at scale. You'll be able to do it cheaper than anywhere else. And here's the thing nobody actually talks about when it comes to B2B. And most large enterprises know this. And if you work in a large enterprise, then you know this. Most of the deals, if not all of the deals, are done over email. You might start the conversation at a conference. You might start the conversation over the phone with your contact there. You might start the conversation, because 2 people had a meeting and they kicked it down to you from leadership. But the nuts and bolts, the details are always ironed out over email. But still, people never think to consider the medium that you always close the deals on might be the medium that you want to outreach on. Large deals take weeks of follow-up. They take months of follow-up, back and forth, meeting with other stakeholders. That is not done at a one-time conference. That is not done over a paid ad. You are skipping the line and circumventing it and getting the conversation going by using the right medium from the jump. So when it comes to identifying and closing large enterprises, there is no better channel than cold email. Cold email is the most disrespected medium there is, and it has never been a better time to take advantage of it. For the exact process that I use to generate leads for enterprises or for SMBs and startups, and how you can do the same for your business. It doesn't matter what level of client you're dealing with, because at the end of the day, all of these people have email addresses. It's just about how well can you target them. I'm going to cover how I find the leads, how I enrich them and verify them, and then what I say to them to open the email. I'll do this with an example, and I'll show you the databases that I actually use. All of this is powered by the cold email system that I set up and I operate. I leverage AI to help pack my clients' calendars with meetings. And no, this is not an AI SDR. Anybody that sells you that stuff is just going to bullshit you. All right, this should be a fun one. Whether you're the CRO at a major enterprise or you're the head of sales at a small startup, everybody wants to know, how do you get the best quality leads? How do you go after your most ideal clients? Enterprise leads, most of the time. Most of the time, people want the biggest fish. So how do you do it? The beautiful part about this is that it is the same thing going and searching for enterprise leads as it is startups. It's really no different. So I'm going to go over the exact framework that I use to develop leads that I will message and book meetings for my clients with multi-million and multi-billion dollar corporations. This is exactly what I do for them, okay? You're gonna get the sauce right here. So, very first thing, how to get enterprise leads. And shameless plug, if you want meetings with enterprises and you want me to do this for you, then book a call with me at my website, ampliflow.org. We will be able to take a look at what your motion is, and we'll get this whole thing sorted. So, first thing, I want to debunk a couple things here. First of all, AI. Do we use it? AI SDR, is it a real thing? It's a real thing. AI is a real thing. AI SDR, not good enough today. If you're hoping some database is going to surface the perfect contact with the perfect message and spill it for you and send it for you, doesn't exist yet. Nobody's that good. AI doesn't sound like humans. It's all the same drivel and slop you see on LinkedIn and in your inbox. That's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to generate. It's going to hurt your reputation. You need to be better than that. And that's what I'll go over here as well. I'm going to show you how to set up a proper marketing messaging. First thing, what do you need? Number one, a lead database. This seems simple, right? But most people don't get this far, right? They go and they say, okay, I have a company that I want to go and search for, and we need to get customers. And then you just post on LinkedIn, or you ask a couple friends. There are databases where you can filter and find people and businesses and contacts for specific roles across millions of businesses. And you can literally find this information. I'll give you a couple examples of this. Apollo is the one we're going to go over today. That's a great one. There's Store Leads. If you're looking for literally e-commerce stores, there are databases that are specialized in e-commerce stores, like Store Leads. There's also databases that are more suited for local businesses, like D7 Lead Finder, right? So you want to take the time to go and find the database that has your ICP, your ideal client profile. This is basic stuff, but you need to realize that, but most of the time when I get consulted with clients, I'm going to make my face big here again. When I get consulted by clients, a lot of the time, they will come and ask me, where do we get our leads from, right? And the crazy thing is, most of these enterprises, they just assume because they're an enterprise, they need this enterprise grade solution, and they usually go and spend $30,000 on a ZoomInfo license. ZoomInfo's information, as far as I've heard from everybody that I've talked to, no offense, ZoomInfo, is outdated. It doesn't work as well as they say it does, and the same leads are cheaper elsewhere. Additionally, if you are looking for a very niche type of lead, maybe you are looking for aerospace OEMs, there are different places you can find those leads. You can find those databases of specific OEMs, or you can go and scrape them yourself. So you need to apply this level of critical thinking there, and we're going to go over how to do that. So first of all, find the database. I'm going to start by going over an example. This is a fake company we are going to essentially build a campaign for. So here we go. Introducing Credit Guard. Credit Guard does enterprise fraud and credit risk monitoring. So it monitors transactions and counterparties for fraud, credit exposure, and compliance red flags, right?
basic stuff, right? This is, really, really basic. Who's going to buy this? Oh, the risk team, the CFO, the compliance officers. They're going to want to make sure that, they're staying fraud and credit, monitored. And what does it actually do? Well, it protects against fraud, losses, and regulatory fines. Now, this doesn't mean anything to just about anyone. So first part about going and finding enterprise leads is you really need to understand at like a high school or sixth grade level, the type of solution you are offering and who you're creating it for. Okay. So don't be afraid. A lot of people think that because they can't speak in this business abstraction, protects against fraud, losses, and regulatory fines. In what industry, right? It's okay to ask these questions and it's okay to dig deeper for this. So this is exactly what we're going to do. Now, the lead database we're going to use is Apollo, like I said, but this is where the AI comes in. This is where you want to go and start learning about who exactly, in simple terms, you're going to solve this for. So we're going to take this small profile and literally plug it in and say, I am looking for leads for my company credit card. Here is a brief synopsis on it. Okay. Now, the first question you want to ask it is, what kinds of businesses have fraud, credit exposure, and compliance issues they are at risk for on a regular basis, right? So a little bit of critical thinking here says, okay, if we're solving for this fraud, loss, regulatory fine, we're trying to understand credit exposure, etc., who actually deals with that, right? Is this maybe like a dentist isn't going to deal with this, but if you are a $500 million a year e-commerce brand, perhaps fraud and credit exposure is a really big deal. You can't be having fraudulent purchasing activity happening on your website all the time. It's going to hurt your reputation with the payment processor. We just need to figure that out. And you don't need to have the answer. We have AI. So, great. So we have our answer here. Okay. Financial services and banking. No big surprise there. Commercial banks, credit unions, payment processors, right? This is obviously constant exposure to fraudulent transactions. They are the transaction business, right? This makes sense. Insurance, fraudulent claims. That's cool. Enterprise and retail and e-commerce, like I'd said before. Telecommunications for subscription fraud. Again, what we're gathering here is you're getting your profile of the business because you can make some common sense decisions around this. It sounds like if there's a payment happening in every one of these examples, we're basically at some point in the payment system, we are finding that there is compliance or fraud risk. And so that's what this solves. So who has the most transactions? Where are the most payments happening all the time? Hospitals, insurers, freight forwarders, government. Yeah, I mean, everybody deals with this stuff. So let's make this really, really easy. Financial services, commercial banks, credit unions, payment processors, all these guys, they're constantly dealing with fraudulent transactions. They could probably use something like this. But if you can't explain in one sentence what these guys do, then you are at a risk. And granted, this is a fake company. What we're going to do is just treat it like it's real. So I'm going to say, okay, I went ahead and just copy this whole thing, ask ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, what would Credit Guard do for this type of client? Give me 3 examples of how it would work for them. Simple. Great. So transaction monitoring in real time, counterparty credit risk scoring, compliance, and AML red flag detection. Now we have an idea. And what you've actually done is also trained the AI. You're kind of helping it hone its answer in. So now it has a profile of like the problems that it's going to be dealing with day to day. Credit Card is going to be solving day to day. So now we can ask it, what is the ICP in this industry for this solution? Company size, or anything else. And just like that, it'll help build this ICP. And you want to know this, right? Now, if you're doing $100 million annually, you're doing $1 billion annually. Now you save them 1%, 2%, 5%. That's a lot of money to them. So this is helpful to know. And then obviously you have the industries here. We're going to stick to financial services. So now you have an ICP. Now you're just missing exactly the org structure and the buyers. So who deals with these issues directly? And you get a list of all the titles that you need. So let's just take a step back here, right? We said if we want to get a bunch of clients for Credit Guard, what do we need? We need to have a lead database. And as part of that, we are going to need the titles and the companies and the industry, right? We need to be able to hone this in. And let me show you how this plugs in. You go to a list like Apollo. Now we know who we're dealing with. So let's first of all start. And what we want to eventually get to is a list of actual people that we're talking to. So let's start with a couple of basics. Number one, let's just say that we're only dealing with the US. Okay. Then number 2, what did we say we wanted to deal with here? 500 plus employees. And $100 million in revenue. Cool. So now you have your filters updated. Now we need to get down as you have 26 million people that work in this. Oh, and obviously the last thing you're going to need is you're going to need the industries. And so this is important, right? Financial services. Luckily, they actually have financial services as an industry keyword, but if you didn't have that, then you could also employ some company keywords as well. So maybe you say banking or whatever. But still, we have 2.7 million people that we can talk to. Pro tip when you're using Apollo and really any database is that a lot of times they will have some data that's just in there. But really what you're going to need at the end of the day is their actual email, maybe their phone number. And so you want to make sure that you get their verified list, right? This stuff is unhelpful. The update required and unavailable. We might as well not have it. So simple thing, but just fix it. So now we're down to 1.7. Still a ton of people. And really not all these people are relevant, right? IT supplier manager, global sourcing, etc. So we need the list of all of these roles that are relevant. So let's take a look at some of these and make sure that they're basic. So we want people that can actually make a buying decision. So what do? We are going to want a list of people that have the titles from director level and up of information security, finance, credit risk, compliance, regulatory, and fraud departments. And it'll just spit it right out of you. Pro tip. Cool. So now you'll go, pop in the titles, bang, cool. And now you have a list of 50,000 people that could be relevant for what you're looking for, right? Some of these things, and then what you want to do is you want to take a look at the list and make sure that some of this stuff makes sense. So as I'm reading this, right, we have this list and I'm seeing a lot of director of security operations. Now, my issue with this is that these are probably actual like corporate security, not like information security. So we want to go ahead and just remove some of those. So we have director of security operations, VP of security operations, take those out. And that leaves us with a bunch of really qualified leads, right? This is basically exactly what we're looking for. Vice president of information security, vice president of risk management, vice president of treasury. These are people that are going to be dealing with the credit and fraud risks and the audit risks, all of the stuff that we're talking about now. So here it is. Out of thin air, using AI with a database, you now have 51,000 people that you can target just in the US for your credit card solution. So let's go back to our document here. Now we have our lead database and we have our leads, right? You need to get the leads off the database. What do you do next? You are going to need to have the sending infrastructure to send to 51,000 people. How long would it take your sales team right now to send to 51,000 people? I know a lot of teams that'll say that their baseline for any one rep is 400, maybe 1,000 emails a month that they need to send to their ICP. That means that you would need to, if you wanted to send to 51,000 people just once in a month, you would need to staff 50 SDRs just to send 51,000 emails in a month. We do it a little bit differently. We can do the entirety of this TAM in about a week. We can do it in a day if we really want to. But the point is, we are not limited by the number of sends. And that's what really makes us a little bit different than everything you see out here. Everybody says they can just send more emails. You actually physically probably can't. And also, most of the time when they send emails, the reason it has such a bad taste in your mouth is because your emails sound like if I just went to ChatGPT right now and I said, write me a cold email for this offer. This is what everybody's inbox looks like, and nobody buys this stuff. Fraud, credit exposure, and compliance red flags aren't just operational headaches. Like, would you pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, fraud, credit exposure, and compliance red flags aren't just operational headaches? Nobody talks like that. That's why these don't get responses. Stopping fraud before it hits your balance sheet is not something a human would say. That's the issue with email today. That's why so many enterprises still struggle with email when it is by far the most overpowered channel, and why we are still able to get meetings booked with billion-dollar companies. I'm not going to go over the sending infrastructure. That's obviously part of just what we do as a service for our companies. We can also consult you on it if you'd like to understand how to set it up internally, but we're not going to go over it on this call. That's for something else, or just book a call with me. I'll explain it to you there. So what's the last piece? You want to get enterprise leads. You need the leads. You need to be able to send to them. The last thing you need, what are you actually going to send? So I showed you what a bad email looks like, because a bad email for most of these guys sounds like everybody else out there, and it's not tied to any actual metric. And that's a problem. A lot of people with a lot of these companies, they will go and they'll try to send an email and just list all the features and benefits. Hey, you have a big problem with your balance sheets, and if risk reporting also might be an issue, maybe we can solve for that, because we actually have a tier 1 compliance from some auditory committee. Nobody cares. You are not speaking to me. People think that you need big enrichment lists and you need to be able to go and target with intent and signals. It's helpful. I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter. If you find someone and you have an intent signal saying that they're looking for a solution, then yeah, obviously you should go and pitch them that. But most of the time, you are missing the core piece. You don't need it to still book a meeting, okay? We're booking meetings with billion-dollar companies with 3 sentences. Because one, you can actually read 3 sentences. You probably will read 3 sentences, okay? So here's what you need. Very simple. This is your magic formula. Hey name, your relevant offer, a proof point, call to action. So as a business, you're going to need to anchor to some kind of value prop, to some kind of proof point, to some number that people can sink their teeth into. Yeah, you improve my rate of defaults. By how much? What does that mean to me? Improve? I don't need improve. I improved yesterday. Okay, so how do you break that down? Here's one case study, a global e-commerce platform, significant rise in chargebacks. Here's what we did. 45% reduction in chargebacks in the first 60 days. That's what we're going with. Simple. You might also take this identification of 3 high-risk sellers before significant financial losses. Early identification is perhaps a useful mechanism, and I'll explain how we'll use that. Mid-sized bank. This is probably what we're going to want to go with because it's relevant to the industry. Saying that you reduce chargebacks to a bank might not be relevant. Depends on the type of work they do, but if you're sending out into a broad industry of just finance-related people, you want to just stick to something that all of them are dealing with. Regional and consumer lending, smaller uptick in high-risk credit defaults was unnoticed, so they did some scoring thresholds. Great. 35% drop in new defaults. Risk team productivity went up by 40%. I don't love productivity as an anchor point, but there's ways that you can spin that data into perhaps an efficiency metric or some kind of implied efficiency there, right? And obviously, if you are doing that, you need to basically be the most conservative that you can and assume like a no-brainer minimum that was achieved through it. This is tough to anchor into. This is what we're going with. 35% drop in new defaults within 3 months. So how do we write the email? Okay, it's not, hey, is fraud and regulatory risk a big problem? No, we're not doing that. Very simple. What's my relevant offer? You're the CFO of a company, you get this email. We monitor bank transactions for fraud and credit exposure for companies like JP Morgan. Okay, I'm the CFO. I'm the guy that should be reading this. Now we drop our proof point. Take it literally from here. We helped a mid-sized bank, and it's always better if you can refer to them by name or by revenue, drop new defaults by 35% for a mid-sized bank within 3 months. You might even say in under 90 days. That sounds a little bit more urgency. Can we show you how we'd do it for company, their company? Okay? I want you to look at these side by side because I think it's important to understand and contrast the difference here. Because you can be your own litmus test of whether or not you should send this email, right? Would you reply to this email or not as the CFO? So here's version number 1. Hi name, fraud, credit exposure, and compliance red flags aren't just operational headaches. They're direct threats to revenue and reputation. That's why when companies in finance and insurance and e-commerce are turning to credit card, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And I'll make it even easier. This is how it'll show up in your inbox. Here it is. Hey, Arcia, we monitor bank transactions for fraud and credit exposure for companies like JP Morgan. We help drop new defaults by 35% for a mid-sized bank in 90 days. You mean to say? In under 90 days. Can we show you how we do it for First Bank National, made up the bank? Very, very simple, very direct, and very to the point. That's all you need. So you want to know how to get leads for enterprises. This is how you get them. Not just finding the leads, but this is how you actually get them replying to your emails. There's so much sauce in this video. I just realized I did this, and it was honestly a longer one. But look, this changes in every industry you go into. The approach, the lead list, the types of people you should be targeting, what you should be saying. You need to have, it's a bit, as much as it is a science, it is still an art. This is the exact email that I sent to book a $12 billion company for my client. They did $12 billion on a little change last year in revenue. And this is what I said to reach out to them to get them interested in having a meeting with us. For a little bit of context, my name is Arcia. I left the corporate rat race last year, and I now run a company that specializes in helping businesses with B2B enterprise cold email. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context on the company without giving away who the company is because I value all of my clients' privacy. But basically, this client helps train AI models. So what they do is they are helping different AIs learn how to be more accurate. So they have to train the model to do it. If you wonder why there's a difference between ChatGPT 4 and 5 and 3, It's because there's a lot of different testing that goes into making sure that the model is performing better and giving more accurate answers. The same thing happens across industries, everything from helping Teslas identify whether someone's a traffic cone or a dog, as well as in the automotive space, as well as in logistics and all these other sectors. So this company helps businesses do that better. Now, this company, in order to get in front of them, we needed to pick one of three angles. And this is true with your copywriting for any industry. You need to pick an angle that either tells them how they're going to make more money, how they're going to save more money, or how they're going to save time. And I listed that in order of how you should position your offer. Now, before you launch any campaign and before we get to the actual copy and sending of the message, you always need to set up your campaign right, which means that you need to have your deliverability nailed, you need to have the right infrastructure for sending, and you need to have a list built with your ideal clientele on that list. If you're going to send the best copy in the world, but it's to the wrong people, it will never work. And if you don't have the deliverability set up, then it's never going to land in the inbox anyway. So assuming you have all that together, I'm then going to show you this email and exactly the text that I use, and I'll explain why it worked and why I said what I said. So going line by line. First line, name, good afternoon. And so what I did is I had something called conditional logic that would basically identify what time of day it was. There's a couple of reasons why I picked this opener. When you're doing a mass email campaign and you're sending thousands of emails a day, you need to do something called spin tax, which basically means that you are differentiating the email a little bit in every single one of the sends. The reason being that the ESP, the email service provider, is going to see if you're sending the exact same message over and over again. It's going to assume that you're spam. So a couple things that we do that changes every single time we send an email. Number one is the name. And number two, depending on the time of day, we say good afternoon or good morning or good evening. Now, depending on whether you're using Instantly or Smart Lead or Email Bison, they're going to have different rules about how to set this up, but they can all set it up. So first of all, name, good afternoon. Also, this is a little bit formal. It's not, hello, how are you blank, which sounds a little bit informal. Now, notice how also it's pretty casual. It's not informal, but it's not as formal as hello, name, how are you this afternoon, right? We want to keep it a little bit more colloquial. Second line. Our head of AI or machine learning modeling is offering a complimentary audit of any of your AI models. The reason I said this first is because you need to lead with value. Why are you emailing me? If they don't recognize you, then tell them exactly why you're emailing them right out the gates. Just give them the value straight up. Most people would start and say, oh, I apologize for the cold email, or, oh, I just had a quick question for you, or, oh, is AI modeling a big concern for you today? This isn't how people say things in real life. You need to be able to say this in a conversation and make it sound like something you would actually say. That's the litmus test that you need to use, okay? So that's what you send here. I just told them exactly what my offer is right out the gates. Then I said, helped an enterprise cut their AI model dev spend by over 70% by spotting some major issues. Now, a couple things here. This is now the value add to them, right? The expected result, what we are kind of anchoring them to. Now, notice I didn't say we helped. I said helped an enterprise cut their AI model dev spend. It's, again, that colloquialism, right? What would you say if you were talking to them over the phone or over coffee? Keep it casual. This also just gives you less words. And so then I go and I said a couple things that are key here. I said helped an enterprise, not just a business, an enterprise, cut their AI model dev spend by over 70%, right? Not development spend, dev spend. That's how you talk about it. People are talking about it quickly in meetings. They just call it dev spend. I'm using language that they use. And then by over 70% is a massive, massive cost savings. If you can promise to cut spend on anything by 70%, if you're spending $1,000 on something and I tell you that I can make it so that you're only spending $300, that's a massive win for you. And at the scale that these companies are operating at, when you're training AI models, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars being poured into it. If you have $100,000 in spend and I'm telling you that I can cut $700,000, that's a massive savings, okay? So just to give you a sense of, I picked a really valuable use case for them. And then I gave them a little bit of a mechanism here. Honestly, this is, if there was one thing that I could maybe improve on this email, I'd say, some kind of unique mechanism, but this was good enough. Obviously, it still worked, but I might say something by using our, proprietary modeling services, right? Something like that they can just quickly grasp. The worst thing you can do, and the reason I opted for this is say something that they just don't have any idea what it is, right? If you said something like, by using our LiDAR detection and computer vision analytics, it's like they don't have no idea what that is. They can't conceptualize it. Doesn't make any sense. They don't want it. It's just another new thing that they're not trying to keep track of. So we spotted some major issues. We cut their dev spend. That's all you need to know. Then who's the right person to connect with. And I love this one because a lot of times when you go to these companies, especially for the offer that we're targeting, there's a lot of different people that you need to be talking to. You don't necessarily know who owns this part of it, right? It'd be great if every company just had an a chief AI officer or a head of machine learning, but they don't. This falls under the CTO. This falls under the head of engineering. This falls under whoever. And so when you're building this list, you're going to undoubtedly be getting some people that are in the right titles, but aren't necessarily overseeing this. Or maybe there's another VP of engineering that handles this kind of thing. This is great because it at least prompts them. If they know that they need help with this, it'll prompt them to just send you to the right person. Then, very, very simple. Name, a little bit of credentialing, the company, so they kind of know who it's coming from. And this is the moneymaker, right? PS, we handle ML, machine learning, or AI training for companies like, and then I listed 3 major enterprises. Again, I'm not going to tell you, but they are massive companies that gave a lot of credibility. The type of companies that you look at and you go, oh, okay, everybody knows who they are globally. This is a massive social proof lever for us. Because what we're doing here is we're just signaling authority. So again, from the top, we said, hey, good afternoon, casual. We tell them exactly what our offer is. We're offering a complimentary audit. And then we start credentialing ourselves why you should care about this. Why does it matter? Why do we matter, right? It matters because we'll cut 70% of your AI model dev spend. It matters because we do this type of work for these 3 major enterprises. It matters because we will do a complimentary audit for free, right? It's low cost, it's high impact, and we have obviously know what we're doing because we've done it for other companies before. So this is the email. I would say that you can copy the script, but realistically, you just need to use the thinking behind the script in order to find the right message for your offer, okay? This is how I personalize 1,000 or more enterprise cold emails per day, just using a simple AI workflow. Enterprise and B2B client acquisition, email, the entire game has changed. You can't just manually send emails, sending 40 a day, manually typing everything out. If you're going to want to have any shot, you need to keep up. But luckily, there are tools that allow you to hit scale and still keep the same level of quality as an individual writing the email. Lead generation lists are thankfully a lot easier to come by now. And there's a ton of contact information for decision makers, for CEOs, and for people that do need your solution. But on the other side of that, you are having a ton of people that are spamming their inboxes that make it hard for you with a real solution to get in there and talk to them. I personally send over 12,000 cold emails a day for just a handful of clients. And when it comes to personalization, there are solutions now that make it so that every single email can feel like it was written for the person you're talking to. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I do it, how to personalize, how it works, and why it's a non-negotiable and why you need it in 2025. If at any point in this video you want my help setting up a campaign or implementing this workflow, then just go to the link in my description, schedule a call with me, and we'll be able to set it up for your business. So the way that you set up this system is very simple, okay? It all starts here. First, you need to start with what is your ideal message to your customers. So before, you might be able to send an email that it just says, hey name, if we could save you 30% on production costs, would that be interesting? A sign off, maybe a proof point at the end. What you can say now is, hey name, we have a solution that can save you 30% on production costs for this specific type of medical device. We wanted to talk to someone who oversees the specific thing they oversee to make sure it's a good fit. Do you have 10 minutes for a quick chat? There's obviously going to be a million ways that you can make this better or worse, but for now, we're going to focus on being able to surface this type of personalization. So how do you get this level of personalization? 2 things for every single one of these people. I'm going to show you exactly how using a tool called Clay. This right here is a Clay table. And if you've never used Clay, I'm basically going to show you in this video exactly what it does and how to use it. But this is pretty much what you'd get from just an Apollo output. And so what you're going to do here is take whatever signals you can, and you're going to leverage AI to be able to pull these signals out, right? So first step is figure out what you want to say and what you need to personalize. Second step is go to the data and pull it out. So what do we do first? First, we have first name, last name, title, company, email, number of employees, personal LinkedIn, website, and company LinkedIn. So let's first start here. So there's 2 things we need. There's type of medical devices and there's thing they oversee. So let's first get the input for type of medical devices. We're simply going to go here. What you're going to do is you're going to go to add enrichment, and what you're going to need is something that can actually crawl the internet. And so if you use Clay, you'll know this, but not every one of the ChatGPTs or Claudes are going to be able to use the internet right off the bat. So what you're going to need to use is either the Claygent or Perplexity. I find that Perplexity is better for this type of research, so that's what we're going to use here. And we simply put our prompt here the same way that we would put it into ChatGPT. So we want to be a little bit specific, and you can reference data as well. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So you are a company and product researcher. Your job is to go through a company's website, find their flagship products, and tell us what their core solution is. You will review the websites for these medical device companies and report back a list of their products and a one-line summary of what they do, written in basic high school English. Now, how do we tell them what the website is? You simply go here, and you'll say, here is the website, and you just type in / and you can take it directly to the column that you want, which in this case is website. Now, every time you run this, it is going to cost money, so you always want to test it on a couple columns, or on a couple rows first. Great. So now we're going to say... Great, so now we have our output, and we can take a look at it very simply here. Now, obviously, this is still not in a format that we can copy and paste into this type of email here, right? So what we're going to do is tell it, now that we have some details on it, we're going to ask it to synthesize it. And this is where we're going to use ChatGPT or OpenAI. So you can use Clay's AI prompt generator to help it figure out the right way to summarize the prompt in its own model. And so what you're going to do is just speak in normal terms, but give it the specifics it needs, right? There's a million ways I can make this better or worse, but for now, this is what we're going with. You are going to review the breakdown of the medical devices this company makes and summarize in 2 to 4 words written in high-level terms. By high level, I don't mean unspecific. I mean it like this. You wouldn't say clean tech sonar scrub. You'd say medical equipment cleaning materials. The only return that output, no introductions, periods, or anything else, just the 2 to 4 words that can fit in the sentence. We have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for, then the output. Find the company breakdown here. How am I coming up with this prompt? Very simple, because we mapped exactly what we are trying to fill in what phrase. We'll know exactly the type of phraseology it needs. And you can tell it exactly what it's going to go into. So we'll go ahead and save this. So first we'll click generate. As you can see, it's writing it all out for me. And in a moment here, once it's done, it'll shift it over and bam, you'll see exactly how it writes it out here. You always want to go through and make sure it's not doing something you don't want it to say. And I'll just do a quick read through here. This is great, right? This is exactly what I was going after, which is why examples always help. They have their own error handling here and more examples. They kind of go overkill, but you get the point. Now, very simple here. I'm just going to use ChatGPT. And if you have your own API key, you can use your own ChatGPT API. So that saves you some money there. And again, we're going to create this column. And then I'm going to run it 2 or 3 times. And let's see what we get. And with all of this, it's always important at these moments to double check what the output is with what it should be in reality. So for example here, medical monitoring consumables, AED defibrillators, and organ preservation devices, okay? Just to be extra sure, we're gonna go and check out, let's do this one because this is an easy one to verify. Calmed equipment. That's exactly what it is. It's an AED, perfect, defibrillator. And we go here, this is an organ preservation device. There it is, new standard of care in organ transplantation. This is exactly what that is. This looks like a case for it. And you can go through here and make sure that everything looks good. So we have now our output. So if we were to export this right now, we would have a CSV with all of the ideal phrases that we can just go ahead and input right here. We have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for AED defibrillators. We have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for organ preservation devices. Perfect. Now, we need to do the same thing, but for this. And so now we want to be able to take this sentence and we want to find the thing they oversee and figure out how to make it so that this is a relevant sentence for them, right? So what we'll do is we'll go to Clay here and we will, the same thing that we did here, where we did some research on the profile of the person, which is right here. And we'll also use the company data that we already have, which is right here, to get the answer that we want. And so I went ahead already and I populated from this enrichment. This is all I did. I went here, I searched LinkedIn under add enrichment, and I got to Snove, where you can enrich a person from the URL. And you'll find that once you do this, all you have to do is go to add fields and pick whatever fields you wanted to add. And all I wanted from there was their position. So that's all I took. So here's what we have. Here's our output now. Now we know the president and CEO is here. We have the VP of operations, we have the vice president of marketing. So what do? Now we're going to do another enrichment. We can use OpenAI again here because we don't have to go to the internet. We'll make it very simple. We'll say your job. So what you would say here is your job is to look at the company's description and the title of the person who works there and make an educated reference on what they oversee and what their responsibilities are as it relates directly to the products they make. Your output should be 5 to 7 words and fit into this sentence. We wanted to talk to someone who oversees the output to make sure it's a good fit. Again, give them an example. If it's the CEO at a medical cleaning company, you might say something like, what the CEO would oversee is the expansion and growth of the company, right? The output, again, should only be 5 to 7 words, and here's the information. So we go ahead and we generate the prompt. Okay, so here's what we have. Just go ahead and make sure that everything looks good. This is the title, strict to 5 words. They probably gave us some examples, so yep, perfect, right? The VP of Quality and Regulatory Output, that's probably what they want. Head of Product, Roadmap, Future Delivering Product Market Fit. This is perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and save it. And we're going to run it for these rows. Now, take a look at what this has done, okay? So let's read our sentence from the top and we'll just use these. So this is what it's going to do. You're going to be able to download this and upload it into an email sequencer and be able to leverage every single one of these points. So, hi name, we have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for cardiac arrest devices. We wanted to talk to someone who oversees product strategy, partnerships, and regulatory approval to make sure it's a good fit. Got 10 minutes for a quick chat. Naturally, you want to obviously edit your list to make sure that you have all the right people that you should be talking to. So this is going to be relevant for every one of them that you speak with, but this is going to be really, really good and it's going to get you very close. Let's do another one just so you can see how this works. We have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for medical imaging components. We wanted to talk to someone who oversees operations management for parts and training. Perfect. Let's do one last one. We have a solution that can save 30% on production costs for critical care devices. We wanted to talk to someone who oversees product positioning, branding, and marketing strategy to make sure it's a good fit. Okay? This is how you get that level of personalization in every single one of your emails, right? And you can go ahead and do the rest of these rows. I'm not going to do that right now for you because you know how to do it for yourself. Now, if this is helpful and this is useful and you want to see this done at your company to make sure that we are getting the most engaged replies that we can, then go ahead and book a meeting with me. There's a link in my description. Go ahead and schedule it, and we'll figure out the best way to implement this and the strategy we should run with for your business.